I didn't know that Austin had a violet crown for a long time. I knew that it had a lot of kind of a funny glow over the top at night. Anyway, it's a beautiful town, I think, and I love it. My ancestors have been there for generations.
Well, this whole Crestview area was a farm from up to, and it was now Anderson Lane. And it was called a Rich Creek Farm. And I remember as a kid when we came to Austin, it was a big red barn up here, somewhere in here. And we knew we were getting pretty close to Austin when we passed the Rich Creek Farm.
Back when I was a youngster, on the corner of Lamar and Justin was the old drive-in theater, which was one of the first, if not the first, drive-in theater in Texas. And us kids would ride over here on our bike and sit behind the old fence over there, watch the movie because it had an outside speaker, see. And so they finally put up a fence, and then all this property, most of it, and I don't know how much of it, belonged to a man by the name of Rich Creek, who ran a dairy. And so he let us sit on his dairy barn then and watch the old movie over there. At that time, I lived on North Street. It's a little street off of Burnett Road, the other side, North Loop. It's a little short street, just one block long, goes to Woodrow and Burnett Road. I lived on the corner there. I think Firestone has a building there where I used to live on North Street. And we had milk cows and chickens and ducks and turkeys and all kinds of things there.
And I think you said the other day that your family came into Austin once a month to buy things.
No, once a year.
Once a year?
That's back in the Model T days. I'm talking about the 1930s. And it was an all-day trip, the Model T, to come to Austin and go back. And you can imagine how the roads winded around to come to Austin back then. So we'd come once in a year just before school started to buy our school supplies at J.C. Penney's and go back. And anybody that drove Model T from Austin and go back and didn't have a flat, they'd brag about it. So that was an annual trip, and I can remember Austin back when I was just a little kid. You didn't get to Austin until you hit 45th Street.
Where Northwest Shopping Center is, there was a old county school there called Esperanza. And it was a little white schoolhouse there, the old county school. And it stayed there until Western Auto bought that piece of property and built it Western Auto just north of Big Bear store that was there in the shopping center. But that was one of the last county schools, I think, in this part of the country. On across Lamar, on Koenig, there was along that creek down there was a landing strip. Doc Hale was an old dentist, and he had that old metal building still over there. In fact, they had a nursery in it there for a long time. That was his hangar. Yeah, I knew old Doc Hale. He'd take you for 50 cents. He'd take you for a ride in that old Ford. He had a Ford airplane, one of the few he's made. It had 3 engines.
Did you go for a ride in it?
Yeah, 50 cents. He'd take you around Austin. You get to see Austin.
How old were you?
Oh, I was about 13, 14, something like that. But the old airplane was pretty interesting. It looked like it was made out of corrugated iron. The aluminum was corrugated like that. It had 3 engines, one in the middle, one on each wing.